You ever just smile anymore? You don't just
not weirdly, not forced smile like you're growling at something. I do smile randomly.
This is my regular smile. Like, look, wait, no, it's crooked. It's crooked.
No, your head is tilted. That's what it is, Steven.
That I got to tell you guys. Welcome to the Fantasy Fiends podcast, by the way, everybody. I'm your host, Stevie Collier. I'm here with the awesome, amazing, the beautiful Andy Peliquin. And today I'm going to add beautiful as well because Robert is beautiful. We're here with Robert Cano. Cano. So I was right.
Japanese pronunciation, or for those of us on this side of the world, Latin pronunciation.
That actually helped me, Andy. Kano, yeah, that's how I would say it. Kano,
yeah,
or
perfect.
How you would say it. Are you Japanese?
I am not Japanese.
Okay.
I'm Hispanic. My family is a huge mix between Aztec, Spaniard. I have some Cherokee in me.
You say Aztec?
Aztec, yeah.
From what part of Mexico?
We traced our lineage back to Isabella Cano, who was the daughter of Montezuma II.
You're
kidding. All the way down in Mexico City.
We're still trying to find the last remaining missing pieces there, but yeah.
Very cool.
Dude.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Dude, I would tell people in the streets about that. Just like random. Yeah, I'm related to Montezuma, and I want cheese on that. Yeah, and a little bit of.
I'm royalty. Yeah.
Seriously, no,
bow before me, peasant.
I think one of my ancestors on Ancestry.com, he got put in jail because he didn't want to fight in the war or something. I'm like, oh, I come from a line of cowards. Great. No, I don't know. But I did have family members in the Sons of the Republic, so they fought against the British. But anyway, guys, we are back again for another awesome episode. We are back with Robert, who is also a big fan of the show, and you have seen him in the comments sometimes. We are going to be talking about the Shadow Cult. We have a really cool reading, so you got to stick to the very end. So, Robert, for people that are new here, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, first, my name is Robert Cano, as you guys should know by now, I guess. I am a fan. Wow, the words did not come out right. I am an author of dark fantasy and also science fiction, but we will not see that first book in my science fiction world until February. So stay tuned for that one. But I am here today for the Shadow Cult specifically, which is the third book published in my fantasy world, but is the second in the trilogy, if that makes sense. So a little difficult to kind of work with, but here we go. So
God, and the purple, man. We talked about it off camera. That purple, I love it. And the black, it reminds me of my very first cover. So it's a tree, right? I'm gathering.
It's a tree. Mm-hmm.
It's a tree, yes. And I'm guessing the cult has something to do with the tree. No, I don't know.
There is a tie-in, yeah. Something to do with the tree.
Did you draw it or paint it?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. No, I have a brilliant cover artist. Her name is Maddie Holvik, and she's local here in town. And she custom made my covers for me.
Nice. Honestly, I just figured you were the painter because you're related to Montezuma. And, maybe why don't you tell people that you're related to Montezuma? I want everyone to know we've got royalty on the air today. Well, great. Robert, man, it's great to see you again. We were going to talk about some cool stuff today. But first, we're going to talk about the good news and the bad, kind of, for me. Who would like to go first?
Stevie, I feel like you are loaded and ready to roll.
I am exploding, and I wrote them down, everybody. So real quick, I have to get 3 root canals, and it's a long story, but short story. The long story is I had a horrible day yesterday. Short story. I went to the endodontist. I've been to the dentist 4 times in a week, and they told me they're going to have to test these teeth. And I'm like, okay. They're like, yeah, we're going to have to try to make them hurt. I'm like, who the hell does that? Where you took x-rays. I signed the paper that I could get cancer. Look at the x-rays. Is it bad? He's like, oh, there's no signs of infection, but if you're hurting that bad, we probably still need to do them. And I'm like, oh my God. We seriously made a chicken T-Rex from DNA, and I have to bite on shit. So yeah, I bit on metal, I bit on rubber. My mouth is just screaming by this point. He's like, all right, so here's the part that I was worried about. I'm like, what? What do you mean this is the part? I already did the parts. I don't want to do anymore. They all freaking hurt. And what he did was he said he's going to touch something cold to my teeth. And I thought he was just going to blow air on it because that's what I heard. I heard, I'm like, okay, he'll blow air on it. And then I see this cotton going into my mouth and he touches it. This is a true story. I bolted off of the chair. I knocked the lady over and she knocked over all the sanitary supplies, all the sanitized little pieces of metal or whatever, knocked them all over. And the dentist did not look surprised. And he's like, we got to do it 2 more times and we got to redo this one. And I'm like, I'm shaking, I'm sweating, and I want to start crying. I'm not kidding. It was the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life. And I had to do it 3 times or 4 times because I couldn't stand still. And when I was leaving, the lady told me that they've done studies on pain with teeth, that pregnancy without an epidural is very similar to the pain levels you experience with teeth. Not the aching that I'm feeling, but when you activate it like that. So I don't know where the truth is in that, but ladies, I have so much respect for you now. And that's just that prolonged. Oh my God. Oh my God. So I'm like deathly afraid to go back. He's not testing my teeth anymore. Screw that. Okay. So that was the short story because there was a lot more to that.
Yeah, but you are definitely great at keeping short stories short, Stevie.
I don't think any storyteller is good at it, man. Some of us maybe, but when you're just a firecracker, you just anyway. So my quick updates. I am taking a speed reading course because I was reading at 150 words a minute, which is below average, but I have a comprehension problem. And I've been taking it for 2 weeks and I'm up to 750 words a minute. Wow. And I've never had more fun reading. I'm halfway through, 75% through the Fellowship of the Ring. And yeah, I'm like 750 words. If I read Aragon, an easy kids book, I'm at 1100, which is the really high up there. So that's really cool. Yeah, if you guys want to know about it, it's quick reading, KWIK. It's an Asian guy who does it, and amazing course. The last thing is that I finished listening to the Bizarre Blades, my series with Lisa. It's the first time I've ever finished a series with someone that I really cared about. And the first time I read it, I told her I didn't want to listen to the ending with her because it made me ugly cry. Because I forgot what I wrote. I'm like, did I really write this? Holy crap, man. Very proud of myself. And I don't really talk about my books a lot, but I listened to it with Lisa and she cried like big time. And Lisa doesn't cry. So it was an amazing experience. I got to tell you, it really inspired me to keep going. I was like, maybe you got something here, Stevie. If not for other people, do it for you and Lisa. So it was great. It's a moment I'll never forget in my life. So
awesome.
Very cool.
I should work for Hallmark and do greeting cards. So that's my good news. Who wants to take over?
Robert, why don't you go next?
Well, a week ago today, I released my new book.
Ooh.
Everything's been busy centered around that for the past month. So I'm kind of ready to chill for a while.
Dude,
oh yeah.
I get that. Heck yeah. Okay, what's the next part? Starts with an M. Montezuma, man, come on.
Oh, yeah, I guess I'm related to Montezuma II.
Yeah, I'm bringing that up every 10 minutes, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, and announcement, we are starting a new cult for Joe Exotic. That's our new cult. We're calling it the Lion. Wait, what has he got there? A tiger? The Lion. We got the Tiger Club over here, okay? And our slogan is, we're great. You should be great, too. Okay. Okay. Robert, awesome, man. And I know, dude, I would be so tired after release. We can't all have Andy's superpower.
Right? It's draining. I don't know how he does it.
The closest thing that I get to a superpower is that I prepare like months in advance, so that when it comes to actual launch day, everything's kind of set up. And that would because I hate that stress so much of launch day and all of that. So, is it my turn to share good news?
Yeah, I didn't know if Robert was done talking about Montezuma. He won't shut up about it. No, just kidding.
I know.
That's me, man. Do you speak Spanish?
No, I can still understand it, but I can't really speak it very well.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
I grew up speaking both English and Spanish, but
Well, Andy, what? That is so interesting that you can, if you don't use it, it kind of dissipates, even though it's native to you. But you can still understand it. You and Andy
I can
could.
still understand it.
Well, Andy, let's hear it, man. Okay, let's get on with the show. All right. I'm kidding.
Okay, so good news. Since the last Fantasy Fiends show, I finished officially Cerberus Book 11 and sent that off to beta readers. I finished the beta reader notes on Cerberus Book 10 and sent that off to the editor. I finished the editor's notes on Cerberus Book 9 and sent that off to the formatter. And then I finished the typos and corrections on Cerberus Book 8 and sent those to the editor as well. So the books in the various stages of production are almost done or, along their way. And starting next week, tomorrow, I'm going to tweak the outline for Cerberus Book 12, the last book in the series. And on Monday, I start writing it. And it's awesome because it's the first week of November, and I have all the way until December 23rd to write one book, which is just so much time. It's wonderful.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't know how you do it.
It's just, typing fast and sort of planning things in advance is kind of the only way that's worked for me this far. But I'm so excited to finally finish this series, and finishing this series means putting these characters to bed potentially for the last time, or, this iteration of them. Like, I've got a prequel trilogy in mind, but that's these characters before everything happens to them. So it's basically a brand new character in essence, because, the character we meet in Cerberus 1 has not only, been in a wheelchair for 5 years, but he's got an AI implanted in his brain, and he's been working as an assassin, and he's isolated from the rest of the world. The prequel trilogy is him in the height of his military career. So he's got all of the, all of his buddies around him, he's in a military team, all of that. So it's in many ways, it's a totally different kind of book. But it's exciting to put this to bed, because then I get get back to work on my fantasy series, which over the last week, I've realized that I need to basically rewrite Darkblade Assassin. Like, keeping all of the good stuff that I loved about the book, that readers, that connected them to the book. But a lot of things, it was the first book I ever wrote and published. So there are plenty of mistakes that I can now go back and fix and make this story so much better. Make it something that now, this is almost 40 books later. Like, it's 30, 35, 36 books later. I've learned a lot about writing, about creating characters. And so being able to go back and put all that experience to work recreating this story, that honestly, Darkblade Assassin, the Hunter, is still one of the characters that I feel most connected to, even after, it's been 2 years since I've written anything in that series. So it's going to be exciting to go back and basically be back in his skin, and then rewrite the first book, potentially the second book, tighten up, the rest of the books in the series, and get hauling ass on books 8 through what will probably be 14. So it's going to be an interesting year, 2021.
Heck yeah. Wow.
Yeah. How long are those books?
120 to 150,000 words, give or take. But the truth is that probably by the time I'm done with Darkblade Assassin, it's going to be closer to 200, just because, you see him taking down the bloody hand, and it's done in like 3 chapters.
I forgot the bloody hand.
Right. The whole, it's going to be like much more streamlined and focused on him versus the bloody hand and him versus the demons. Right. And so he'll basically be thrown up against both of them fairly early on in the book. So it'll be much, a more like a leaner focused story. Okay. But then he's going to take down the most powerful criminal organization in his city. You can't do that in, 50,000 words. You got to really, really dwell on that and really make the challenges big and nasty and brutal, and have him just rip them to shreds. So it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Rashun, will I enjoy it? You know what? I'm going to enjoy some of it. Some of it is going to be painful because it's going to be sort of figuring out what of my writing is good enough to keep, what needs to be totally scrapped and just rewritten, and what can be sort of tightened up and tweaked. And it's going to be a lot of very, very detail-oriented stuff, which is always more exhausting than just sitting down and just hammering out a story fresh. So it's definitely going to be exhausting. It'll probably take me twice as long as any of the other books that I've written in the last year. But by the time it's done, the story that's going to come out the other side, I am so excited about being able to. It's almost like reviving the Hunter, like all of the things that I loved about him, making them the focus of this book and doubling down on them and getting rid of all the stuff, all of the, the stuff that I wrote in thinking, oh, this would be amazing. Oh, I'd like this. Or, oh, I didn't realize how tropey and cliched this was. Just taking all the experience that I've gotten over the last, it's been 5 years since I wrote Darkblade Assassin. It's been a while. So being able to take that and put it into action, rewriting this book, I am super excited about that.
40 books in 5 years.
Yeah, I taught him that. No.
That's a feat all on its own. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Ooh. Actually, with Cerberus book 11, I officially crossed the 1 million word mark on the series.
Oh, on the series.
On the series.
I was like, Andy,
just on the series, guys.
Yeah. So there is so each book is 80 to 100,000 words, give or take. I think one goes to 110. Mm-hmm. So it was already pretty close with the prequel, which is about, I think, 50,000 words. It was pretty much at 1 million, but then book 11 officially pushes it over the 1 million word mark.
Oh my
That's
God.
Impressive.
And that's been in about a year, almost exactly a year.
Dude, I remember when we started this stuff, man. Wow. I'm trying not to compare myself, honestly. I have a problem with that, so I'm just like, I'm a failure.
I can't compare
myself too.
There's no way.
Yeah, I think everyone who cares about their craft, they try to compare, but we can't do that. Not all the time.
We can't. And not only that, but I mean, you even if we were to put, right, let's just say we put your first book against my first book against Andy's first book, and we take a look at them, we're going to see 3 completely different approaches.
Very true.
To the entire style of writing in the first place, and then we're going to see different focuses, right? Like we each focus on a different aspect of the character, and how do we go about that? Like I think that's it's one thing to say, yeah, sure, I can't write as fast as Andy. I don't know, I don't even think Brandon Sanderson does, but
no, I'm pretty sure he wins at literally every aspect of the writing.
He's prolific, but I don't know if he puts out that much that fast, because that's impressive.
Well, I will put it this way. His writing is so good that even if he writes a little bit slower than me, it is just like I am blown away, honestly, by some of the writing that I read. Mm-hmm. And some of these people, they write as fast as me or even faster than me. And I'm just like, how do you come up with these things? I just finished listening to Joe Abercrombie's, the second book in his new series. Mm-hmm. And I was just blown away. And I was almost feeling discouraged. Like, I don't know if I could ever craft characters or stories like him, because my brain wants to get through it far faster, whereas the way that it seems to be is that everything is so well thought out and well crafted and just amazing. And so I am humbled often when I read these books.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Andy, you specifically first, and then Steve also. When you guys are writing, what is your process like? What do you focus on as you're just hammering out the words?
So I have an outline crafted beforehand, so I know what the sort of the story beats of that chapter is going to be, and of course, the story beats for the whole book, and of course, or generally for the whole series. So really, I'm just focused on the exact moment that the character's in, like what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they do, how they react to things. Everything is just very much in the now. And I know where they need to go, but the way that they get there is shaped by who they are and how they react. And often the way that I think about them getting there changes when they react a different way in the moment than I, planned a month ago or, earlier. So it's like all I do when I sit down to write is just everything is just focused on the now. And I just write sort of, I write fast so I can focus, the moment sort of, they stack up, but it's all about what's going on in the character's head, how they feel, how they react to all of that. And then everything just kind of develops from there. So the more in the moment I am, I think the more the story flows. It's when I have to like, for example, with the Cerberus series, I have to do a lot of like biological and technological mumbo jumbo that I do not understand. Right. So when I have to do that, it's hard to be present and in the moment. Whereas when I'm writing the character going through horrible, horrible shit, like I wrote Cerberus book 9 faster than I've written almost any of the other books in the series, because everything took place just right inside the character's head, inside their body. They were suffering, they were in pain, they were feeling intensely. And so that's the stuff that I can really easily write, or that helps me to get in the moment more.
Okay, that makes sense. And you, Stevie?
Yeah, so mine is I get in my own way a lot, and whenever I get into the flow, there's no stopping me. I will just write and write and write. But when I first started writing, I had a drug addiction problem to prescription meds. And now that, it's 5 or 6 years later, I realize now that I was self-medicating for my ADHD. And now that I'm on actual medication that I need to be on, it's changed my life, and I have no desire to go on any. I don't have the desire to drink anymore. It was all to get rid of anxiety, but that's a long story just to say that I have to sit down and I have to really tell myself, write for yourself, write something that's really cool and really fun, something that makes you feel. Don't think about what the titles on Amazon and if it's going to sell properly. What do you want to write? I think other authors can write for other people and still really enjoy it, but I just can't do it. And that sounds selfish. But whenever I just make a wiener joke, you can always edit it out. Just do it, man, if it gets you hard. So I do. And I do it all the time. And Jonathan has to reel me in, but that's fine. I use the word bastard. We had to take it out, whatever. But my secret is writing for myself. And I always tell people that.
Very cool. A question from the audience. Robert, same to you. How do you see yourself growing in your craft as an author, and who do you look to for guidance, direction, and mentoring? Rebecca is in the comments, so you have to make sure to mention her. Just saying.
Yeah. Okay. No, actually, what's funny is I lean on Rebecca very heavily. She's my editor, and so I have to. Yeah, she's really good. She's almost as good as me. But I tease her all the time. She's gonna be
mad now.
That's okay. That's okay. But to answer that question, I guess like it took me a long time to sit down and actually consider writing a novel in the first place, because I had been writing poetry for so long, and
really,
when you read my novels, you actually will catch that influence. It's very heavy in there, just in the way I describe things, just in the way I approach the craft, and that's something that I'm actually kind of proud of. I like that my writing forces a lot of readers to slow down, right? They can't just for the most part, readers don't just burn through my books. They actually slow down and they savor it a little bit, right? And that's not across the board, but that's a high percentage. And I appreciate that, because usually what the feedback I end up getting is something along the lines of, well, I love that it made me slow down, and I love that I had to stop and appreciate the beauty that you put in there. That means a lot to me.
That's amazing. I'm the opposite. I'm the exact opposite. I want a reader to say, I hate you because I missed sleep last night and I burned through your book in one night, which that is the way that I like to write. And it's because how I like to read too. But
Yeah.
But those books that make you slow down, those are the ones that I think those are the ones that you savor more, and they stick with you often in a way to almost like to the degree of literary fiction. Like you hear people talking about Guy Gavriel Kay. I've never read any of his stuff, but his books, the way that he writes, I believe is sort of the same thing, where just every word you savor it, and it sticks with you. And so for me, I love the more popcorn style where I can just like binge read through it. But those kind of books, they are worth their weight in gold.
There's a place for each of it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, we love our Avengers movies, all of them, right? But we also love our Schindler's List. We also love Saving Private Ryan. Those are very heavy. And we might not be able to watch them every day, but those are movies that stick with us, and those are movies that we love because they stick with us in a very beautiful way, and I think there's a beauty in the same thing with books, right? And so, it's always been my goal personally, not necessarily to craft literary fiction. I don't care about titles. I don't care about that kind of thing. I don't even care about accolades, really. I just want my readers to love what I created.
Yeah.
I want them to find a beauty that I put in there for them, right? And I think sometimes that's harder. It's easier said than done. I think it's hard to accomplish, but I feel like, having somebody like Rebecca in my corner, having the support that I have from my wife, who doesn't even read my books, by the way, but she like right now she's keeping the girls occupied while we do this, right? So it's not so loud or anything, and there are not enough words to say thank you for that kind of support, because it can be difficult. You guys, I don't know if you guys have families, but your wife, girlfriend, children, it adds up, and they need our time too. So I think a lot of times what I'd really try and focus on is balance between what I'm doing with my writing, and then I try and balance that against my family. I want to make sure that my girls know that I love them, and honestly, at the end of the day, if I can do that, that's enough for me. I don't need to be crazy about any of it. Writing right now is not my full-time job. I don't work full-time at the moment, but I am in school, so it's just a lot of things to juggle, but at the same time, being in school these last couple of years under the GI Bill has just allowed me to write and chill with the family. Really, it's been nice. I'm not gonna lie.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
What are you in school for?
Creative writing.
Hey, man, I don't really use my degree, so one of them. But that's
Right.
Oh, and you were in the military?
I was in the Air Force for 6 years. It was a good life. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Thank you. It was a good life. I wouldn't trade the experience for the world, but I couldn't handle the bureaucracy after those 6 years. I had to get out. So
Really?
Isn't Veterans Day coming up sometime in the next couple of weeks?
if it is, I have no idea.
Might be here in Canada.
Yeah, I don't pay attention to those things, honestly. We have like Memorial Day, for those who died, and then we have Labor Day for those who serve, and it's not. We have Veterans Day as well, but I don't really pay attention to a lot of that stuff. Admittedly, I'm probably not the greatest American out there. I love my country, but I think we can do so much better, and we're just not there, So until I start seeing us as a collective raising our standards, I'm gonna keep pushing.
Hey, I mean, I think that makes you more American, maybe, at least someone who seems proactive, or at least not afraid to say something.
Right.
should we just talk about writing processes today?
Yeah, and we can
Good,
talk
man.
about cults another time.
Yeah,
Hey,
I'm
there you
always
go.
down to talk cult. And if that's okay with you, Robert.
Hey, I'm okay with whatever you guys are cool with. I mean, honestly, I haven't talked to you guys in a while, so this is kind of a catch up for me, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a question, Andy, and for you, Robert. So maybe I can. So Andy first. Do you think, because Jonathan is teaching me a way in order to in the method to write a way of writing that allows the reader to read quickly through your book, because now we have this. Amazon, I feel, is teaching people to read quickly because of their KU thing, which is fine. But do you feel that using this method takes away from the art form, or is it just a different type of art form?
I mean, for me, it's a different type of art form in the sense that when I read a book, so right now I'm reading a David Weber novel. And if you've ever read David Weber, he is very much like a sci-fi version of Tom Clancy. And he is amazing. Like his books, I have yet to read a book of his that hasn't blown me away. Like he is very, very, very good in sci-fi and fantasy. But I end up skipping a lot of the like the more in-depth technical stuff, or like in this one right now, there is the Furies, like the three fates from Greek mythology. They're sort of a technological version of them. So all the times that they pop up, there's more poetic literary style of writing. I kind of skip those because that's not what I'm there to read. And I'm on the treadmill or I'm in the middle of doing something. So it's harder for me to pay attention to that. And I get the story overall because I'm there for all the character moments and stuff like that. So for me as a reader personally, that's my style of reading, simply because I cannot sit down and read for extended periods of time. I'll get 15 minutes on the treadmill here or there. I will sometimes get an hour, but it's harder for me. So a story that flows more easily, that goes from action to action to action with the character moments that I need, all of that, that's my style of reading. There are people who will sit down and they will just absolutely bask in a book, in the poetry of it all, in the gorgeous prose, in the tiny nuances and little details. I don't have the attention span or the time for that, so that's not my style of reading. So the style that Jonathan is teaching you is 100% catering to readers like me who prefer to go, from scene to scene with, fairly quickly, keeping things upbeat and action, easier reading. Now, that doesn't make it any less important a part of the art form. It's just a different aspect of it, I think.
Yeah, I would agree.
Awesome. What do you think, Robert?
I think a lot of times, I think authors try too hard sometimes. Like Stevie, you said something very important. You said that you like to write for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's extremely important for any author, really. We need to be writing for us first, because it's about figuring out the story that works, and at least in our head. Like you said, we can go back and we can edit it later. But the big thing for me was, I sat down, I started writing The Suffering. Well, actually, I started writing, this whole story came from a short story that came before The Suffering, right? And that short story is about to be turned into a trilogy. So there's a lot of these things that I think about when I'm writing, and I think, okay, well, I don't want pacing issues, right? So how do I balance my classical art form, my classical novelization style, with a more modern take, like what Andy likes? And I'm not going to say I nailed it, but I have never heard anybody complain about my pacing. Not once. And so even though my books are a slower read, or at least The Dark Archer is a slower read, it still doesn't have any pacing issues. And so I think that there's a really important balance that as authors and as editors that we need to really focus and try and hone, because I think that's really where readers' attention either is drawn in or pulled away, right? And I think it's really that simple, but we just have to be mindful of that stuff as we're writing, as we're editing, all that jazz.
And the same thing going back to what you're saying about pacing. Pacing does not mean full steam ahead all the chapters. You do need every single one of those slow moments because it's those slow moments that make the breakneck, holy shit, everybody is going to die moments all that much more impactful. Just like you need those fast moments so that when those slow moments come, they have all the more impact. So pacing, it means both the highs and the lows, and that's something that's super important. I would say that's probably the most important part. This is actually answering Rashun's question. He asked, I want to know how much do you pay attention to the nitty-gritty sentence structure aspects? And I would say that sentences, I will actually care a lot less about them now than I used to do, because a lot of readers don't know what it means to be a writer, right? They don't know that saying was is wrong. They'll read it. They'll be like, man, the sentence doesn't feel quite right. What's wrong with it? But they'll just keep moving, or they won't because the things turned them off. But so we as authors, we are like super analytical, almost to like an excessive degree about things. But the most important part, I would say, is exactly what Robert said, and that's pacing. You get those high moments where everything is just going nonstop. You are breathless, turning pages, blitzing through it, and then it drops. And you just have these quiet, just genuinely human moments that are amazing. I will say this, my favorite episode of the entire Game of Thrones series was the episode before the Battle of Winterfell, before the episode, the episode before everything went off the rails. That
because it was so quiet.
Exactly. You had so much going on around it, and you knew that everything was coming the next day. But for that one episode, for those few hours, everything was quiet. Everything was genuinely human in every single way. You had these characters who had previously hated each other or who had been enemies before sitting down together, or just all of these things were just so amazing in that episode. Like, that is, I would say, the epitome of the slow side of pacing done right. And then, the absolute tension and just high octane nature of the next battle episode, major, amazing contrast. Terrible battle, but
we need those moments to take a breath.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we need those moments to really build up the tension too. And I think that we can do both. And sometimes it's super necessary, right? And I think that that's always one of the harder aspects of finding that balance. I've spent, I've done like a lot of experiments and stuff where the entire point of what I'm doing is just to build suspense. It's not to give any action per se. It's just to freak out my reader, right? And it's kind of like an exercise in horror, because horror it's not necessarily about jump scares or anything like that. It's about that tension. It's about making your reader feel something and get the adrenaline going inside, right? Like, I've read books where I am so excited to get to the next page. The author does such a great job of pulling me in. And even if it's a slower pace, right, in that moment, the tension is still so much there that I can't stop turning the page. And so there's so many little nuances that we have to think about, right, as authors, that we, I agree with you, Andy, that we have to consider those things. We have to adjust and move with the way that the story is taking us, and just focus on that pacing, focus on how we're going to adjust, focus on how we're going to keep that tension, or let our reader actually take a breath, right? Sometimes I don't like to do that. I won't let my reader take a breath.
And that's why I always say that Doctor Who is horror first and sci-fi second, because the way it is 100% horror, it just happens to be in a sci-fi setting. Or I will say the seasons of Capaldi especially. the Doctor before the current Doctor, you just look at any one of the episodes and you see the way that they use, things like light and darkness, the things like distances, the things like textures, all of these things. They're just classic horror elements, or the weeping angels, the ones that move forward every time the lights turn off. Like, that is 100% horror. It just happens to be in a sci-fi setting. So I actually found it incredibly helpful just to sort of study the later seasons of Doctor Who for that experience of how he builds up tension and suspense in a way that just makes you, he doesn't ever fight, right? There are no big action scenes. He runs around a lot, but it's the way that they build things up slowly, one step at a time and one piece at a time, using the surroundings, they don't even have to show the enemy until the end of the episode, but they just do everything so well that it's a horror movie or horror TV show set in space.
See, and I did something similar, but with Thomas Harris's books, the Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, and Hannibal. I consider those books suspense, but with horror threads, right? And because of the fact that there was so much good use of tension and suspense, that, like in Red Dragon specifically, there were a lot of really frightening moments. And I think it made it even scarier because it was realistic, right? The villain, the antagonist it could be your neighbor, right? You think about, Silence of the Lambs with Buffalo Bill and Lecter, right? And it's like you have this there's almost a dual level of evil. Which one's worse? One you have to look in the eyes, and the other one you're trying to catch, right? And so it's creates a very scary atmosphere, specifically for her as the FBI agent. And so those were things that I kind of looked at and studied as I was reading through those books. And I've read them quite a few times. I love those books. But I find that knowing how to capture that is an art in itself. There are a lot of authors I've read that don't quite get there, I have found, which is fine if that's not even what you're trying to do. But for those sometimes that I think are trying to draw from a darker place, I see a lot of stumbling, because it's not about pitch black, right? Sometimes the most tension can be drawn from the most disorienting thing, which could be the brightest light, right? So then how do you use that? How do you use that to juxtapose the, figurative darkness with, the actual evil or the actual good that you're trying to do? And I think there's a lot of fun to be had in doing that kind of writing. I know I have fun with it anyway.
Well, speaking of your writing, we should probably get into the reading. What do you think, Andy?
Absolutely.
Sorry to cut you off, Robert.
No, you're good.
Just the people love the reading, so. Okay, so do we have? I have it pulled up.
Yep, we're ready to roll.
Okay. Robert, do you want to give us any background on?
Sure. So in this scene, you'll kind of figure out that this is right after they have a run-in with a very specific wraith, and they're not happy because they probably don't have the ability to defeat him. And so they're kind of, let's just go with frightened. They're kind of worried. And but this is a conversation between two baddies, and
cool.
And so it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, are you guys ready?
Yep.
The gods be damned, and damn that wraith.
Aryan's voice echoed through the empty and now largely destroyed catacombs.
I find it frightening how the wraith could come so close to us. If it was not for your dead friend there, I believe he would have found us.
Hoffa's voice had always annoyed Aryan.
This is what happens, Master, when you play at the creation of a demon. You are a child fool and little else.
As they watched, the body of the creature crumbled, bit by bit, into an ash-like substance. Aryan had listened to enough, and he cast a dark magic over the demon Hoffa, lifting him and bringing him close, a sneer on both faces. Neither the human nor the demon were going to back down.
I can kill you while you hang, powerlessly, in the air, demon.
2 demons came out, one a Hellion fire cat, the other a hulking beast, which spoke. All well,
Father.
Sorry, it was speaking to Hoffa.
Yes.
Hoffa hissed in return.
Aryan was just putting me down, lest he suffer a greater fate than the wraith he was so intent on creating.
A threat?
Aryan was unimpressed.
You hold no power here in this realm until I say you do.
Then kill me. You lack the ability to do this alone. You need me more than I need you.
Hoffa leaned closer to Aryan.
Kill me or release me. Those are your options.
Yeah.
Aryan screamed out in his anger and released Hoffa, only to grab the demon's head and pull it hard with the same magic, crunching Hoffa's face into the already shattered floor of the tombs. Getting up from the attack, Hoffa fixed his face and head to its original hideous form and stared at Aryan.
Your anger at the wraith may undo everything. Quit your play, for you know nothing of what you meddle with. Continue bringing me hearts. I shall continue to bring over the demons from Tartarus. The wraith cannot withstand the full might of the 7 hells. But we need time.
Very well. I should go to ground. I will grant you the hearts you require, and in the meantime, we need to kill the wraith.
The wraith is immortal. It can only be killed when all of life and magic have ceased to exist.
Well, what do we do then?
You hide in your temple. I need time.
How much time?
Hard to say. Not every heart accepts the demonic presence, and each takes years to transfer from one realm to the next and grant it a body. Every demon is worth more than you.
And they must stay hidden until we are ready to release Gand.
Indeed.
Will we succeed?
No. But your wraith might.
How do you know all this?
Aryan was curious.
I listen. Even when silent, the gods still speak. Their actions seen across the landscape, their pains echoed in the scars of the world. Dial aches. Her womb is filled with darkness, and she can do nothing about it. She has no idea what the cause might be.
It is within these shadows where we can be found.
Aryan mused, mostly to himself.
Look who is getting smart.
Aryan looked up at the demon, standing over him at nearly twice his height. Sometimes uncertain as to which head or face he was supposed to be looking at. It was safest to look at the head sitting on top of the neck, as opposed to any of those being held by one of his many hands. Aryan nodded in agreement and began his walk back to the temple in Kurlan. He prayed no one had found the body of his idiot apprentice, or that somehow it had been cleaned up. But upon entering through the temple doors, the foul smell of death and decay overwhelmed his senses. In a very short time, he added copious amounts of vomit to the scene, being unable to stifle the urge brought on by the stench.
Boom. Loved it.
Andy, that was awesome, man. And
I was having way too much fun listening to you guys.
Robert, man, that was beautiful. I honestly, I want to know what happens because I've never really seen behind the eyes of evil people before. It's kind of like if Andy and I were bad guys, almost.
It was fun. Well, I mean, I always try to include a point of view that is specific from the antagonist. And the antagonist may be evil or maybe not. He might just be a foil.
Okay, I have a question before we move on then for you. Do you find that difficult? Because Andy has done that different perspective thing with multiple characters, and I'm kind of nervous to do it because I'm not the most organized of people.
I actually, if you read my stuff, you'll see that every chapter, for the most part, has multiple points of view. And I always write from third limited. So I'm very much in the person talking just like right over their shoulder, right? And so I do that with every one of my characters. But what I do is I just have a scene break when I switch to a different character.
Where are you getting your creative writing degree? I'd be interested to do that too.
Mine is at UTSA here. It's a University of Texas at San Antonio.
Oh, you're in Texas. Oh, hey, fellow Texan. All right, I'm loving this weather, man. Let's talk Texas.
Let's talk Texas.
Let's talk Trump, okay?
Yeah, let's avoid the politics.
One time I'd prefer to talk about Joe Exotic than the elections. But awesome, man. Is this grimdark?
I call it dark fantasy.
It feels like dark fantasy, like horror-esque.
There has elements of that.
Yeah.
It's not, I wouldn't say that it's a horror or it's a horror fantasy or it's grimdark, but I would say that has elements that, kind of echo a little bit of those things. I try not to be, I don't write for kids at all.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's funny because I feel bad because I've had a lot of parents ask me about the books and hey, can my kid read them?
Yeah, when I usually tell people I'm an author, they're always like, "Oh, my kid loves to read." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I make a lot of penis jokes in there, so maybe not. I don't know." And they're pretty gory. I sound like that's all I do. It's like one per book.
It is probably what all you do, Steve.
I would. If it made me money, I could do it. I could whip them out, man. Literally and figuratively. All right. Funny. You said juxtapose, by the way, Robert. I can never use that freaking word correctly. Juxtaposed and also sardonic. Like I have trouble. I used it yesterday. I'm like, I just sounded like a complete freaking moron.
I love sardonic. That is like one of my favorite words. It's
sad, sin, and sardine all together. So, and that's kind of what it means, right? It's that attitude, right? I had to look it up. It's kind of like being not vain, arrogant-ish, kind of like you feel like you're a walking dictionary. Andy, that's you. But he's the giant book with the big letters.
What's up?
What is sardonic? How would you use it?
It's like sarcastic.
Yeah.
But it's not like so I think of sardonic as like the upper class version, the more intelligent version of sarcastic.
Yes, that's probably a very good explanation for it.
So I'm halfway there because I'm starting to, and juxtapose. Can we talk about that? Like I feel like we're injecting something in, like we were.
No, juxtapose is
a comparison between two seemingly opposite things.
Well, no, that's I think contrast or compare. Juxtapose is placing things together for contrasting effect.
Yes.
Can I get an example?
So take a look at the Hunger Games cover, right? You could say that symbol there is juxtaposed against a black background because it makes the red stand out a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this podcast / show turned into a learning thing, but I like to ask questions on things I don't really understand because when you ask Alexa, it's like talking to a robot, and she doesn't really take my.
You realize you literally are talking to a robot, right?
Lisa hates that thing. She hates Alexa.
Why?
Because she's scared of it. Like, because that's what an INTJ is. They are very what not cultish. They believe in like government, like it's an inside job kind of thing. Thank you.
Theory.
She's an INTJ.
Yeah, are you too?
Yeah,
that's why we get along, man. Yeah, and I get along. ENFPs usually get along with a lot of people, but I get along with Andy's personality type too, very well. That's why we got the show. I did have one final thing of good news. And it's unrelated to books. I've never played Super Nintendo before, and Lisa just pulled hers out, and I got Chrono Trigger, which cost me $160.
What?
Yeah, seriously, dude. This thing, everyone's telling me how great this game is, and I've never.
It's good.
It's
not worth 160.
No, yeah, I wanted the authentic copy. I didn't want to play on a fake copy.
Gotcha.
That's just how I am. But I'm super excited to play it, and because when I was little, we didn't have the money for that. We got money for a console at the PlayStation 2 area. So really excited. That's good news to me. I don't know.
Hey, no, Chrono Trigger's awesome. You'll love it.
Awesome, man. Well, we're gonna have the Chrono Trigger podcast. Oh, Robert, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook. I have a reader group called Beyond the Fall. And then you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm probably on Instagram more. Twitter I suck at, and I don't really like, to be honest, because I don't understand the 240 character limit.
Right.
Random thought thing. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. But I do have it. So you can find me on both of those at Shadowy Embrace. Ooh. And then I have my blog site, which is shadowyembrace.com. So, are
you on Audible?
I have one book on Audible, and that's The Suffering.
Well, if you need the second book done, you got Andy here. So, Andy, by the way, man, holy crap, that was awesome.
That was awesome. Both of you guys, that was awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. But I would almost forgot my lines. Kind of was like listening to Andy. How did you do that voice of the second demon, Andy?
Oh, it's actually something that I just developed when I was 12 or 13. I was like, I'm gonna learn to roar like a lion, and so I did.
Hey, we all have our thing.
Literally, that was all it was.
That's awesome.
What the heck? Well, with that, I would say that I cut up shirts and said that I was Robin Hood's apprentice, and I would cry when people called me out on it. I was Robin Hood's apprentice. I was a Mighty Duck from the cartoon, so I was a cartoon. And I was also a volcanologist, so I studied volcanoes. So I actually got a lighter and burnt the shirt. I was a weird child. Never wanted to be me.
To be fair, you grew into a weird adult too, so.
Yeah.
Hey, consistency is key. I wanted to be a paleontologist, and then when I was about 10, 11, I wanted to be a marine biologist, and now I'm an author. I don't know what happened.
Hey, my brother is in school to be a paleontologist.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah, man. He's got one of the biggest dinosaur collections in America, toys. So, yeah, and he wanted to give up on him. Like, no, it doesn't matter about the money, man. Do this and make money some other way. It don't matter.
Tell him to send me all of his information, like all of the newest and latest finds and stuff. Like, send me all of. Like, I don't care. I love reading that stuff.
Dude, he was telling me, because I was asking, he was telling me, do you know where dirt comes from? I'm like, no, I don't. He's like, it's plant matter. And I'm like, wow. I like talking to my brother because he doesn't make me feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think about that. But I was asking him, where did the first cell come from? And where did DNA come from if we were all just rock, And he explained it to me. I didn't understand it. But he did say we're trying to replicate it and we can't do it. And he's like, please don't say God. Please don't say God, Stevie. Let's keep this scientific here for a minute. So, but anyway, Andy has a very important question for you.
Yeah, so this is the question that we warned you we were going to ask you. We didn't tell you what it is, so get ready. Here we go.
All right.
What do you think are 2 vital habits or traits for a successful human being? Not a successful author, a successful human being.
Perseverance.
Love it.
I would say that's probably going to be my go-to. I'm going to say perseverance and perseverance. You can't quit. You know,
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. I think my life is kind of a testament to that in a way. I wouldn't say that I've arrived or anything, but I try every single day to just be the best human I can. And
Nice.
a lot of that is because I persevered. I pushed through the hardest times. And even though they were tough, even though they could have turned me into just the worst person, I didn't allow it. You know,
Dude, you sound like Lisa. I'm into you now, so get ready.
oh baby.
Things are going to get really awkward once the show ends broadcast.
That's why I have Joe Exotic. He's the foreplay and the afterplay. Anyway, what was your second one? You had perseverance, and then I interrupted.
Oh no, I said perseverance and then perseverance.
You are a poet, you know. You just poetic our ass. You vomited poetry on us.
I will say this. I'm watching the world's toughest race on TV right now, right? And seeing the insane shit that these people are doing. They are racing 670 kilometers they have 11 days to do it. And this is like cycling and hiking and rafting and rock climbing and paddleboard. And it's just insane what kind of things that people can do. And, you know, I've been playing sports and going to the gym and doing, you know, fitness and outdoors related stuff my whole life. And these people are nuts. And really, it all comes down to just persevering and just not stopping. Like these guys, they climbed 1,000-foot waterfall rock climb in the dark so they could win the race, right? And these people are pushing for, you know, 40, 50, 60 kilometers across an ocean on a little tiny kayak or outrigger for the sake of winning a race. And that's really what they're doing, is just to win this race. And it's a title and all of that, but in the end, it's just human achievement, and it is insane. And so I would say that perseverance or grit. I like grit slightly better than perseverance, but both of those are so similar that they are probably one of the most important human traits, hands down.
Yeah, what we're capable of as people, whether it's physical, mental, or anything else, the sky's the limit. Honestly, we limit ourselves.
Very beautiful. Well, awesome. We'll go follow Robert Cano on all of his social medias and go pick up his book on Amazon. There's also one on Audible for those of you who like to listen to books. Andy, why don't you tell us about Monday?
Monday, evidently we're doing some weird goblin game show.
Another one?
No, so the last episode we were gonna do the Goblin Game Show, but our dungeon master was sick, so I ended up running the game, and it was a ton of fun to run the game as the dungeon master. I had literally 28 hours to like write the whole thing and plan it out. Thankfully, I had help from Tony Sir Doran to actually put all the, you know, the technical stuff behind the scenes together. But it was so much fun to do it. So, you know, it might actually happen again in the future. But
wow.
Yeah, the Dungeon Master will hopefully not be sick this week and joining us to have some weird ass goblin game show with Jet Purdy and other random stuff. We're going to find out what happens.
Awesome, man. Well, are there any more updates? Any last things we need to say?
Nope. We are going to be joined by Paul Oliva, PD Oliva, or Oliva. I'm not sure how do you pronounce his last name. He will be our guest next Thursday. It's going to be an awesome show, as always.
Sounds good. Well, Robert, thanks a lot for being here, man. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, we will see you on Monday. Remember, you get to be a part of that. That is on Twitch. And then we'll see you again on Thursday, where you get to see our beautiful faces again. Meet someone new. Get out of your shell a little bit. Do some drugs. I know I would. You know, that was bad. I don't know. This is not for a kid show.
This has been the Fantasy Fiends show.